They've called votes, but we're going to try to go to Mr. Conley and then Mr. Donalds, and then we'll be these just 2 votes. Won't take long. We'll be right back. We'll recess.
Chairman, I think Mr. Moskowitz is ahead of me.
We'll go to Moskowitz then.
Don't worry, Mr. Chairman. It won't be the usual. And I'll try to get you some time back. Well, first of all, thank you for coming today, Commissioner. I think you've established that if any of my colleagues get get worms, you'll make sure that they get ivermectin. So we don't have to rehash all of that nonsense. I want to turn your attention though to a little bit of the aftermath of COVID in the pharmaceutical space. I mean, do you think it's appropriate that with all the supply chain issues that America had during COVID, that we've not really fixed in a broader sense, but in the medical sense, in the pharmaceutical space, I mean, should we still be getting a majority of our over-the-counter drugs from Wuhan? Should they still be produced there? Should we still be depending upon Wuhan, China, to be making drugs that we sell in a significant basis on shelves in this country?
Well, I mean, I'd say, I'm not sure it's specifically Wuhan, but the key starting materials for drugs are mostly coming from China, and I don't think that's good for us. We don't need to have no drugs from China, but we need to have a firm manufacturing base that we can be confident about in these times of stress.
During the 2 bills, and I know you weren't necessarily there, but during the 2 bills, one in the Trump administration, one in the Biden administration, where we spent $7 or $8 trillion combined after COVID, how come the FDA wasn't advocating, or if they were, I'd love to hear it, why weren't they advocating to start establishing, with all that government money was spent, why weren't we establishing that we should start manufacturing those products here?
I wasn't there at the time. I would just say, pretty much the time I came in February 2022, we really saw how stark the problem was, and we started advocating then. But, we live in a country where the pharmaceutical industry is for profit. If people are not getting the prices they want, or the purchaser is getting a lower price overseas, that's where they go. So to fix this is going to take some kind of intervention, which is well beyond the FDA. We're certainly advocating that intervention is needed.
All right, let me turn your attention. I know you got a bunch of questions on cancer drugs. My dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He lived 18 months, and he passed away about a month before I ran for office. He was on cisplatin. That time, there were no issues. Do you think it's acceptable in America that families would get told by their doctors that we're going to have to push off a treatment because there is a shortage of a chemotherapy that is helping keep extending the lives, keeping people alive? Do you think that's acceptable in this country? And why is it that we're not better prepared to handle when there's these manufacturing issues, whether it's in India or China? Why are we not better prepared to handle these things?
I won't say, here's what I'd say. First of all, it's unacceptable. I mean, I have a close relative with pancreatic cancer right now. I know how frightening it is. I would just say, what's happened is we have health systems, hospitals, pharmacies, and we have manufacturers who are mostly overseas now. If we take cisplatin as an example, 5 years ago it was $400 a dose. It's a generic drug. I gave it as an intern in 1978. Now was $13 a dose. You cannot make cisplatin for $13 a dose and maintain quality. So people running the company say, why should I make it? And we don't have a system in place that says, this is an essential drug. We're going to put something into effect which causes the market to behave.
Well, I don't want to interrupt. I mean, you are the FDA. Perhaps that's something you guys should be looking at. I mean, there are all sorts of ways to be working with manufacturers all day long on trying to incentivize them to make life-saving drugs that may not be.
Well, I mean, if I may, we have no authority to give incentives. We are prohibited by law from dealing with pricing, but I would refer you to the HHS report that came out last week with our heavy input that goes through all the details here. So I'm completely in tune with your concern, and I think people around the administration know every time I'm on a call, I bring it up.
There's been reports in some of the vaping products in Florida seeing fentanyl in them. What are we doing about some of these things coming in from China, some of the illegal vaping products?
This is, I'm very concerned about what you raised, and we just had a meeting, an annual meeting in Atlanta where mostly parents of children who have died from overdose. Ann Milgram, the DEA administrator, was there and gave the details about how these products are getting into the mainstream of America through cartels predominantly. This is really a combined effort. FDA has a role, but it's now become mostly a law enforcement issue with DEA, and we are working together as closely as we can. But I'm not pretending that we have this problem solved at this point. It is a big deal.
Thanks, Commissioner.